Hey Shufflers, welcome to the Shuffle the Podcast. It's Catherine, co-founder and editor at Shuffle Online. Shuffle the Podcast is our official podcast where we will be discussing movies, music, events, interviews, and all that good stuff we usually write about. So now you'll be able to hear us talk about all that cool stuff and be more engaged. So we have a packed first episode, so let's get started. Caitlin is joining me. She's our movie guru. You probably have read her critiques on a variety of films, mainstream, indie, VOD. So welcome, Cait, to the Shuffle the Podcast.
Thanks so much, Kat. And yes, that's me, Cait, the film critic with a heart of gold, cynic the critic. You've read it all online.
Yeah, so we thought it'd be fun to kind of start off with a little intro so you guys get to know us. Think of it as kind of inside the actor studio, but we're going to be doing inside the Shuffle studio. So our questions are a little bit different with just one of them staying the same. So you can let us know which one you know is the same question if you're a fan of James Lipton. So do you want to go first, Cait, and ask me, or do you?
I'll interview for a little bit. So I guess, since we are in Austin and I know you to be a taco connoisseur, we'll kind of go into a territory that you're familiar with. Green or red salsa?
Green all the way. Get red out of my face.
What? Okay. No, I'm a huge red salsa person, and I mean, I don't discriminate. I don't see color when it comes to salsa. I love a good salsa verde, but a red salsa is absolutely my favorite. The best, or at least my favorite right now, is I love the medium garden salsa at H-E-B.
Which one? The H-E-B brand?
Yeah, the one that they make in like the deli.
Ah, yes. Have you tried that green salsa? Like, it's called that green salsa. It's H-E-B brand too. It's like $4, but it's awesome.
Okay, great. Okay, this is now H-E-B the pod.
Yeah. Shout out to not our sponsor, H-E-B.
Not a sponsor. Open.
Yeah. What else you got for me?
Oh, okay. Let's see. Sticking to kind of the Austin theme. Austin is notoriously terrible with traffic. I was on Mopac on the way over, and that sucked. When you are stuck in Austin traffic, are you listening to a podcast or music?
Sometimes neither. I sometimes will sit in silence, and then I realize I don't have anything on, and then I'm like, okay, let me do this, and then trying to shuffle my phone with, trying to get a podcast or music on. But when I do listen to one of them, it's usually a podcast, either Joe Rogan The Experience, or I've been really into like UFC stuff lately, so Brendan Schaub. Yeah, just a variety. I don't know. I can never figure out what music I want, so I'm just like, I'm going to listen to someone talk.
Yeah, this has been kind of a weird week for me. I'm typically a podcast all the way person. It makes me feel like an intellectual to be listening to podcasts in public. Typically, we hate movies. I go deep into the film and entertainment podcasts, but lately, I think I've been kind of turning a corner as an adult. Been listening to a lot of personal finance and like business. Side Hustle School is a big one. Safe for Work, Bad with Money with Gabby Dunn. Just things that make me feel a little more mature, I guess. Although this week has been off. I have been hitting the Mamma Mia soundtracks hard, and like the greatest hits of ABBA have been getting me home after that commute every day. It's pretty great.
Yeah, after I read your Mamma Mia review on Shuffle Online, I went and I was like, oh, I want to hear that song again. So then I wanted to hear how Lily James sounded, and she's awesome.
She's so great. Yeah. So great. I'm kind of a sucker for musicals, and especially like film adaptations of musicals, and I love whenever a musical performance translates so well. And honestly, everyone's heard ABBA at some point or another, but I always find myself going back to the Mamma Mia versions over the original. I don't know if that makes me a bad fan or not, but I don't give a shit.
No, I actually did that because I was like, oh, let me just go to the original, and then I was like, I don't like this as much. Yeah, I felt so bad.
Yeah, I follow for sure.
All right, what else?
Favorite curse word?
Motherfucker.
Why?
Just, it's like, you motherfucker, or you, and we'll bleep. I don't know if we should keep it, but
I think we should definitely swear in this podcast.
Yeah. So we'll make a precedent. Yeah, I don't know. It just sounds so, like you, yeah, and you can also just use it as a, you can use it in a good sense, you can use it in a bad sense. So sometimes it's like, you motherfucker, but it can be like, hey, you motherfucker. I don't know. It's just, and when my parents are around, maybe mother effer, but yeah, so I love that word. And it also just sounds like it rolls off the tongue nice.
Motherfucker. Yeah. Motherfucker. For me, I'm a traditionalist. Fuck does just fine. It's short, it's sweet, it's to the point. My favorite insult right now has been douche canoe, and I don't quite lump that in as a straight up swear, but fuck fucks where it's at. Douche Canoe is a fun place I'm experimenting right now.
Yeah, I mean, my fun one that I use a lot with my husband is probably shite, just because we used to live in Australia and we had a lot of Irish friends. Yeah. So then we just started, not as a joke, but just like, oh, you shite, or...
That's crept its way into some of our correspondence. I've noticed that.
Yeah, so that's how I just do it, and I hope people like get it. I don't even like preface it with anything. I just put shite, shite.
It's very quirky.
Yeah.
Now, you know me that I'm a big movie theater person. I keep the experience very holy, but in your case, and kind of acknowledging that you are a TV person, movie theater or Netflix at home for a film viewing experience?
That's hard, but I equally love them both. But if I had to choose, probably the movie theater, just because I get to have my delicious movie butter popcorn with jalapenos. Nice. So yeah, I can never replicate it. I've tried doing popping my own kernels, putting homemade butter, which doesn't taste the same.
That chemical goodness.
Yeah. Every time we swear, we're like, okay, we're not gonna get it this time, and then I smell that butter, and I'm just like, I can't not get it.
Yeah, I'm getting like slightly more uppity as it comes to movie theaters as I get older. It used to be that I would go just anywhere, anytime. The older I've gotten, the more that I insist on, if it's not Alamo Drafthouse, I'm not fucking with it. I'm an Alamo Victory member, all that good shit. And I love that so many of the screenings are done through Alamo, because I get to feel like I'm not cheating.
Yeah, I was I love the Alamo Drafthouse, but when I lived far away in Austin, won't bore you with the details, there was Movie House and Eatery, and I think they kind of started that trend of movie recliners.
Yeah.
And then it's slowly crept into all the other theaters, like Regal and Cinemark in Austin had to kind of step up their game.
Right.
So now I live, more north, and I go to a Cinemark that's like 5 minutes down the road, and they have really comfy seats now, like reclining seats. So I'm just like, cool, I can deal with this.
Love it. Okay, oh shoot. So what gets you hype?
What gets me hype? Probably food. But that's a different kind of hype. That's just a happy hype. But I think for me, when I interview people, through Shuffle, whether they're artists, filmmakers, just people doing what they love, it kind of always gets me really hype, and I'll go home and I'm like, I need to do this, and I need to do a million things, and I need to do it now. And then of course it kind of fades away, and I'm like, oh, I need that again. But that always gets me super hype. And also just, our fellow writers on Shuffle are also awesome. So, when I read a really good piece that they've done, I'm just like, oh my God, I need to write some more. So, because I'm usually editing stuff. I mean, I write a good amount, but I think just seeing other people's passion and, seeing what they're good at, and when they kill it, I want to kill it too. So it gives me hype. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, I think, and actually I can kind of snowball off of that idea myself. Something that really gets me hype is I love the full extent of fandom. And for a lot of the same reasons that you just described, it's really great to get very involved in an experience with someone, to get involved with, kind of to go down the rabbit hole of fan theories. And just kind of a catchphrase of my reviews whenever it comes to Marvel films is to get all aboard the Marvel hype train of that experience. Is that first trailer drops, everybody's excited, and it goes all the way to old school comic fans, to people that just love the movies for what they are, people who love the stars. It's just the experience of fandom, when it doesn't get toxic, is a really fantastic experience. And that's something that gets me hype, is being involved in a fandom and watching it get stirred up.
Yeah, or is it how the young kids say, it's lit fam.
Young kids.
I love that. I love that saying.
We are not that old. We are young kids.
Yeah, youngish. You're younger than me.
Youngish kids. Yeah. I'm younger. I am still a young kid.
It's lit fam. All right, so tell me a little bit about you. I like to get to know someone, and I mean, I've cheated already because you've done reviews already on Shuffle Online, so I kind of know your movie taste. But for the shufflers who are tuning in, what would you say is your top 3 movies? And they can be, you can decide whether they're recent or, because I always hate when people ask me what's your favorite movie, because it's hard.
I am going to try to come at it from one of my absolute favorite movies of all time, just hands down, any time, place, or space, is definitely The Quiet Man, John Wayne and Maureen O'Hara. I grew up on John Wayne Westerns and Star Trek. That was that was the perspective that my dad brought into my life. I love John Wayne. I love that whole era of classic Hollywood and just like the real deal stars. I think that's something that's kind of missing. And I mean, like we can go into a whole separate episode on, the history of, studio industry and all that in Hollywood. But there's something about those old stars. There's something about those great old films. I just love it. And I think The Quiet Man is one of the absolute best examples. Another favorite that I've got, I really love Hereditary from this year. Just a fantastic movie. I'm a total horror hound. I love the diversity of the genre, anything from slasher to exorcist films. I'm really into it. But I do kind of lament the fact, just as an uppity, cynical critic sort, I do lament that a lot of the horror genre kind of goes into kind of a cheap place. It's become sort of a cheap genre. It's cheap thrills, cheap make, actually cheap. Not a lot of budget goes into them. And so I really appreciate that Hereditary is a true horror that is so detailed, and the filmmaking is just so fantastic. It's, a lot of people think about the It remake from last year as being like the film that has elevated horror. I don't think so. I think it's going to be Hereditary, and I would love to see the film get more recognition as award season rolls around. Third fave? And it's a hard question. It's a really hard question. Inglourious Bastards is always going to hold a really special place in my heart, really. And of course, the older I get, the more I'm like, it might not be as good as I remember it, but it's always going to be special to me because that was really kind of the first film that got me into cinema, as a broader study and interest. I've always loved going to the movies. The experience of the movies has been really great, but Inglourious Bastards was probably the first film that got me to pay attention to film, to pay attention to things like directing and filmmaking and soundtrack and score. That's something Tarantino's really good at. So yeah, Inglourious Bastards. And he kind of gave me my crush on Eli Roth. Yeah, big crush on Eli Roth, and he sexually confuses me and scares me a little bit. So yeah, so kind of like my relationship with the film overall, like I look back on that and it's like, is there something... The crush on Eli Roth isn't aging very well, but Yeah,
he's getting creepier and you're getting smarter.
yeah, but you never forget your first.
Yeah, I guess if I had to pick three right now, and this might change, but I'm just going off of what I'm thinking. So The Mummy, this is a guilty pleasure, but it's always going to be my favorite just because I was young. I think it was it's just a movie I can watch over and over again. Anytime, any day. I have seen it probably over 50 times or more. I love Brendan Fraser in that film. I wish. Oh my God. Yeah, he was so good. Beats the Tom Cruise Mummy way more. And then also, I still am big into Egyptian culture. So at that time when I was young, I thought I was going to be an archaeologist. And, so it just kind of was like, oh, I want to be Evie, going with Brendan Fraser, on the adventures. So it was just fun. Like, I miss those kind of movies that were just fun. Like, they knew what they were a blockbuster, and they were, somewhat smart, and it was just fun. It was like a fun ride. They didn't have to, do this whole thing. And then the second one, like you said, what got me into cinema was Lord of the Rings, of course. I was, I think, a junior high, and I was obsessed. Anyone who knew me at the time knew I was obsessed with Lord of the Rings. So I just, that was the first time where I was like, I wish I knew what I could do to get into what a workshop. Yeah. I would watch all the behind the scenes, the extended DVDs, read the books. So that was the first time, like, I really immersed myself in, like, what is this movie making kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Third, I would just say, just purely just because I'm thinking of Christmas already, Jim Carrey's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, because it's
not expect that.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being honest, I can go into my whole critical ones that are more Academy Award winning favorite films, but in terms of just movies, the ones that I love, I just love that movie. It just makes me feel so good. It's one of my Christmas staples. And yeah, I just remember watching it. It was one of the first few, besides Lord of the Rings, that I watched in the theater more than like 3 times.
Wow.
Yeah, and I've watched it with my mom, and so it's just something that it's one of those movies that kind of just every time you see it on, you're like, oh.
No, that's so true. I think that's something that we so often struggle with whenever we're speaking in terms of, like, especially like film critique and all that. And I try to avoid this. I don't always succeed. there is a difference between movies and cinema. And at the baseline, movies are entertainment. And they can also be art, but, you know, something doesn't have to be incredibly moving or perfectly constructed to be a lot of fun and to bring about an emotional response.
Yeah, we can dive into a whole other episode about nostalgia and movies and, you know, critique and cinema. But yeah, I mean, that's what comes up to mind. So in that aspect too, do you have three least favorite movies that you just will never watch ever again?
The first one that comes to mind for me, did you ever see Whale Rider?
No, I didn't.
Oh God, wasn't
that based on a true story?
I don't know. That was some early 2000s bullshit, and I just remember that movie as just being god awful, and I don't know. It was one of those rare circumstances where, you know, we hadn't heard of it, but my mom was going to take me to the movies, and maybe I was too young to appreciate it. Maybe I could come back and have a good time with it, but I just remember being bored out of my mind, and like there was barely even a whale in it, and I'll see that movie like in Redbox every now and then. Like it's one of those that will like show up at rental places, and I get angry. I get angry every time I see it. Another least favorite, and, you know, this might stir up some controversy. Boo a Medea Halloween. Fuck that movie. I mean, and I'll get up on my critic high horse here for a second that blatant cash grabs, I'm not into it. You know, Tyler Perry's Medea is, for better or for worse, an icon at this point. And Tyler Perry turns out some pretty good movies. And there's definitely a market and an audience for what he does. And it's fun. But that movie does not need to exist. That movie does not need to exist, and my boyfriend knew that, which is why he took me. Yeah, fuck that movie. Fuck that movie. Fuck that movie.
I haven't seen any of them, so that speaks for itself.
Yeah, well, there you go. Another least favorite. Probably like Beverly Hills Chihuahua, other movies that just shouldn't exist.
Oh my God. Is that an old or new one?
I love to kind of, you know, and I'll admit that I haven't seen it. Maybe it's great, but it's those. Actually, you know, and I'm going to put it under the label of Beverly Hills Chihuahua, but just my least favorite movies are the full spectrum of those talking animal. Actually, I can tie it back to one that I have seen, Racing Stripes. That's a terrible. That one's a mid-2000s, and it's the one where the zebra becomes a racehorse.
Frankie Muniz?
Yeah! Terrible movie. Terrible movie. Yeah, I saw it several times because my little brother loved that movie. And that's when I was still living at home. Yeah, talking animal movies that come post-Babe really need to go. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about those. It depends how it's done. I can't really, I mean, besides animation, I don't know if I want to see anybody talking. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess my least favorite, because I'm in the realm where I don't hate on movies unless it's really necessary, but obviously you can't like everything, and I think those for me early on were like stupid comedies, which didn't make me very popular with like my crowd when I was in high school, because everyone loved those stupid comedies like American Pie and what was another one? I don't know. Like any of those really just
like teen sex comedies.
Yeah, I couldn't get on board. I was like, I'm gonna go watch my Academy Award winning movies. So I was just like, I couldn't get on the train. Like I couldn't get on that train. So any of those just makes me cringe every time I see them. I'm like, no, I'm never gonna watch those.
Yeah.
I mean, one that comes to mind, and we'll talk about this later, is Jurassic Park. Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom. I've never hated a movie so much, with a passion. And if you hadn't written that review, I would have probably wrote it and made it worse.
Yeah. I have thoughts, and Chris Pratt, we know you're a listener. What were you thinking?
Yeah, we'll talk about more about you later. And then
Chris.
Yeah, I think I just don't. Yeah, I don't know if I have a third one right off the bat. If I think of one later, I'll come up with it. Yeah, it's really hard for me to like dislike a movie to its core. I most likely, if I see the trailer and I know it's not my type, I probably just won't see it.
Yeah. No, I'm very comfortable with my prejudice. For sure. I try to rise above. I don't always succeed.
Yeah, I'm always a type where I'm just, okay, I'm gonna try to see what they were going for. This is someone who, you know, they worked on pre-production for a long time. It's someone's job, so I'm not just gonna be like, that movie sucked. You know, so I think of all that and I kind of appreciate it. And if I've seen interviews of the filmmakers or cast, I'm like, oh, that's what they were going for. You know, so I dive really deep into it, and then I guess I hate the movie less, even if it wasn't that good, or I try to see the high point.
You're very kind.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't like bashing movies for the sake of it, but if it's necessary and they didn't, they didn't hit the mark, I'm okay talking about that. All right, we're going to end this on one question that if you watch James Lipton Inside the Actor Studio, you'll know it's coming off of that, but it's different. So if you died and you could choose a movie world to go into for the afterlife, which character from a movie would you want to meet, and where would you be? What movie world would you want to dive into?
Can you cross those at all?
Yeah, let's cross it. It's your afterlife.
It's my afterlife. It feels almost like a cliche because that film has so many kind of undertones of the afterlife and the beyond. Did you ever see the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus?
Yes, I did. I liked it.
Yeah, it's I think it's very underappreciated, and it's flawed. It's flawed, but I love the concept of just that ever-changing, ever-shifting, kind of whatever you want it to be. That's what paradise is to me. I love that. Now, in terms of a character from a movie that I would want to meet there, John Wayne's Rooster Cogburn. I feel like he and I would get along, or Jeff Bridges. Just Rooster Cogburn in general. Probably John Wayne's version, but I could kick it with Rooster Cogburn for eternity.
Here with the old movies, I couldn't stand. I mean, it's not that I can't stand them. I think I just love. Old movies to me are like 80s, 70s. I mean, you gotta go classic. Yeah, I need to watch some of the older ones, but yeah, I guess going through this, we might have to do an oldies podcast.
Oh man, if you ever wanted to do like an episode on like my all-time favorite like hunks of classic Hollywood, like I could go on some Errol Flynn and some Clark Gable like for days.
If it was my world and I died and I want to go into one, I think I'd go kind of bleak just because I love it so. Like I love the movie so much. I would go Mad Max with Tom Hardy, and I'd probably die again real quick because
specifically with Tom Hardy though, right?
Yeah, that Tom Hardy probably, and him just grunting, Catherine. But I don't know, it just looks so pretty. Like, even though it's so bleak, and I probably would starve and probably wouldn't like it, but I don't know, it's a tie between that one and the new Blade Runner. Like, it just looks so amazing, like, even though it's like a really bad world. But I want to be there, just maybe for an Instagram photo.
Shuffle the pod on Instagram and Twitter.
We're going to be plugging a lot, guys. And then the movie character I would want to meet would probably be probably Brendan Fraser from The Mummy. Let's just go there.
Brendan Fraser and Tom Hardy. That's a cast of hunks in your afterlife for sure.
Yeah, it's a very specific hunk that they don't make anymore. Not very often. All right, so now we're going to discuss some fun stuff. You went to the Meg preview screening, so you're one of the few people who have seen the Meg.
That was yes. So by the time y'all are listening to this, that will have been 2 weeks ago. But in current time, this previous Sunday, I was at Rolling Road Show's The Meg advanced screening, and that was the first audience to see the Meg, which was pretty cool. I'm a huge fangirl of the Steve Alten Meg novels from, I think, 1997 is when the first book came out, and so I was really excited for this movie. I'm a huge shark lover. I love shark movies. I actually wrote papers about sharks in cinema in college, so there's my credit. That qualifies me to go and review the Meg. Yeah, but it was such a cool event. In Austin, of course, Alamo Drafthouse reigns supreme as a icon in the city, and an extension of what they do is the Rolling Road Show events. If you're reading Shuffle, you know that we've been going to those all over town, and so you're probably familiar with the Jaws on the Water screening. For those of you that aren't, Alamo Drafthouse partners with Valenti Beach Resort and Water Park. They'll put a big inflatable screen out. They'll give you inner tubes. You can float on the water. Best way not only to watch a movie in the summer, but best way to watch a shark movie. It was a ton of fun. Thank you, Fonz PR, for having us out. We love you guys.
Yeah, and I've been to the Jaws on the Water last year, and it was awesome. I realized the movie doesn't hold up that well. I mean, it's good. You have to think of it that...
Are you going to criticize the holy name of Jaws? Who are you?
I mean, in terms of like... I know it was 1970s. It was groundbreaking. It just, some of those jokes don't land.
I understand.
Yeah, but it was fun. It was definitely the best way to watch it. If you guys are in Austin during the summer, you should go to one of those. What did you do? Did you do some of the water parks?
No, my partner and I are old fogies, so we just sat on the beach with our beer and tacos, which honestly is a great way to spend a Sunday evening.
Yeah, usually how I spend my Sundays, just not on the beach, on my bed, eating tacos. Did you guys float in the water?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's it's the Meg on the water. You got to be on the water.
Yeah.
So we kicked back with our tubes, took our tubes home afterward. Great souvenir. Again, just a wonderful event.
Did they do any of that scary thing that they do with Jaws on the Water, where they will have scuba divers like?
No, they actually did like a PSA at the beginning where it's like, this movie is much newer and a lot scarier. We're not going to do that to you, and if something does grab you in the water, get out. I shit you not. I know. I was kind of like, wait.
You were really excited for this movie. You've written about it before, Shuffle Online done it. What were you expecting? And then kind of break it down. I mean, we're going to have our review up, but, what are some things that you were excited about that hit, and then some that, kind of didn't hit?
Well, like I said previously, the Meg novels came out in the late 90s. There was a series of 6 books written by Steve Alten, and I've read them all and I love them. Something that I was kind of hopeful for going in was the books play it very straight. It's very high stakes. It's very action. It's very gruff masculinity. And there's a whole, we could go down a rabbit hole on kind of problematic Steve Alten and the fact that several chapters in, I didn't know the color eyes that my lead character had, but I knew the breast size of every very, very minor female character. So Steve Alten has his issues. But all the same, I was still hoping very much for that dramatic, very action-based deal. It's kind of like Jurassic Park with sharks. That's how the books read. So I was hoping for that here. Not what I got. The film definitely made a choice. It's not that they went for it and missed. So I will give that to the Meg. Just because they didn't meet my hopes and dreams doesn't mean that they totally failed. Maybe it does.
Yeah, are you one of those? I mean, when I see blockbuster movies, I know you have to kind of give a little leeway. Forgot to mention the director is John Turteltaub, so he's done National Treasure, which I love. One of the movies I love with Nicolas Cage.
Well, and it's very much in league with that. I mean, there is action, and there are some really great scenes in there, but the decision that the film makes is where the novel plays it very straight and tough. This film really kind of goes into that. It knows what it is. It knows it's a movie about a 70-foot shark and Jason Statham fighting it. Like, we know that. We're allowed to have fun with it. And actually, that's a praise that I will give to Statham's performance. I was so excited when they cast him because whenever it comes to like gruff masculinity, you can't beat him. He's fantastic. And he definitely brought that to the character of Jonas Taylor, like a really great job. But he was very funny and very charming and just kind of infused a little bit of humor into the role that fit very well with the direction the film chose to go, even if it's not what I dreamed.
Yeah, I love Jason Statham. I feel like he makes you believe that he believes his character. So, he's not just like going through the motions.
Yeah, he's still very fresh.
Yeah, like in Fast and the Furious, he really believes he's that, like he has a conviction, which I appreciate. He's not just like, hey, yeah, I'm making a paycheck and I'm like huffing and puffing.
Yeah, I feel like that can happen a lot with action stars. I think back to Skyscraper with Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Dwayne The Rock Johnson, I can't speak. Sorry, guys.
We'll edit that out.
But I think back to Skyscraper and, The Rock is a huge star and has been churning out movie after movie, and he's an incredibly charming guy. But he is reaching that point where he's kind of phoned in, and that's something I do worry about with action stars, is because they so often get typecast into the same role over and over that it is very easy for the varnish to kind of wear off. But Jason Statham is still fresh, he's still shiny, he's still fantastic, and did a really great job in The Meg.
Yeah, I mean, not to go off on a side note, but I think that's a problem that I have today, and we're going to do another podcast on action movies, because I think the action heroes of yesteryear were doing the same character, but they still made you believe every character, and each of the action stars have their own identity. So I don't know, I miss those times. But anyway, so what were some of the highlights? How were the special effects? How did the shark look? That's one of the big things with shark movies.
Shark looked okay. I mean, we've improved from Two-Headed Shark Attack and Jaws, which honestly, but I'm going to go back on that. For the time, really fantastic. Shark looked just fine. I actually was having this discussion with another film goer while I was there, and this movie had a bad case of big things moving fast, which is something that really bothers me in a lot of monster movies, is something very large should not be able to sneak up on you that quickly. And definitely something that the Meg was guilty of, and it did show in the effects.
So they were just trying to make it like a super mega shark, kind of like Deep Blue Sea-ish?
Yeah, it was very much in line with Deep Blue Sea. That's actually, I'm glad you said that, because it does kind of have that, it has very much that same vibe, but I feel like where it kind of differs from Deep Blue Sea is I think Deep Blue Sea was trying to be a little more straight horror. It was just very much a product of its time.
Yeah, I mean, I love Deep Blue Sea. I watched it recently, and it still holds up in my eyes, I mean, for that time period.
Yeah, for sure. Like, there's definitely a vibe that it achieves, and I do think that the Meg's very self-aware of what it is, and, you know, for me, having studied sharks in cinema and being such a big fan of shark films, it does make me a little sad that we haven't really had a very good shark movie since Jaws. Jaws was the last movie about sharks that was also just a great film. I want to get back to that. I was hoping that The Meg was going to be it. It wasn't, but there are many more shark movies coming, I'm sure.
So what would you say someone could do to kind of bring it back to Jaws, like just in 2018 or 2020 or whatever? Yeah,
but for me, I think that's something that Jaws did really well that we often attribute to effects, but really it just comes down to good filmmaking. They didn't overplay the shark hand. Very rarely did you actually see the shark. The shark wasn't the overall spectacle. There was a lot more subtle work going on. And I think that's something that we're kind of missing, as effects have progressed and as as our attention spans get shorter as a film viewing audience, we want more. We want more. We want to see more. We want things to be more obvious, at least for those sorts of movies. And so if I was going to direct the next Jaws, I would go back to form with less emphasis on the shark and more emphasis on the very real fear. I mean, humans don't really belong in the water. It's not a place that's comfortable for us. And I think that fear is something that has made the shark film so successful, because everybody's scared of sharks, even just a little bit. It's a terrifying idea. Yeah, I think the imagination does better than anything that any filmmaker could put in front of the camera. So, as always, what's implied is a little more exciting, a little more terrifying.
Do you recommend people going to watch it? I mean, as the end of a summer blockbuster?
Definitely as an end of the summer blockbuster. My overall impression of it is that it makes a great rental. It's something that in terms of just filmmaking and general cinema, it can wait for streaming or Redbox. But given the time that it's coming out, the fact that summer is ending, and I mean, it's a fun movie. If you go in knowing that you're just in it for a good time and that it's Jason Statham versus a shark, then absolutely.
I love that you always end your reviews sometimes with it's a rental, even though that word is kind of lost now in some ways. I mean, I guess you can stream it on rental. I mean, you can rent it on Amazon and stuff, but I don't know if people actually rent.
Excuse me, my parents go out every Friday night and they get a pizza and 2 Redbox, so the rental is very much alive.
Oh, okay, yeah, maybe it's just not alive in my house. Yeah,
I feel you, and people know what I mean.
Yeah, I love it though. Yeah, I love it though. It's cute. All right, so now we're gonna move on to movie highlights and meltdowns of the summer. Yeah, since we weren't around during the summer, but we have a lot to talk about. That way you guys can know what we're all about. So what were some of our favorite summer movies, least favorites? And we might differ on some of these, but we can kind of go through a little bit. What do you want to start with? There was a lot during the summer.
Well, so probably my favorite to come out of the summer, just in terms of movie going, is I really enjoyed Ant-Man and the Wasp. I'm a huge Marvel fangirl, and Ant-Man actually is one of my all-time favorite Marvel movies. I think it's a great, standalone introductory film. I really enjoy the character. I enjoy that it's a little more grounded because, Marvel's gotten pretty big and pretty vast in scope, and Ant-Man keeps it very localized and very focused, and I appreciate that. It's the quiet in the storm. Ant-Man and the Wasp was a great continuation of that. I really enjoyed it a lot. Something that was so disappointing was Jurassic Park 5, Jurassic World 2, Fallen Kingdom, and I call it that unironically. It was just writing on name alone. I wish that they hadn't done it. I was excited for it before, but now that I've seen it, I'm so upset. And Chris Pratt, once again, I know you're a listener. come at me, I'm upset.
I just went on a whole spiel earlier about how I don't hate movies. I always find...
But you hate that movie, don't you?
Yeah, and it really irked me. Me and my husband were good. I even was wearing my dinosaur shirt. I didn't expect dress. And for those of you who think like, oh, it's never going to live up to Jurassic Park, I get that. But Jurassic World was pretty decent, and I thought they would build more upon that, and it missed the mark on so many levels. And there's like a running joke if you're like in the cinema world where it's like the next like TV episode, like after they run out of ideas, is go to space. And like I feel like they literally did everything in that movie, and the next thing they can do is Jurassic World 3 will probably be in space. It seemed that ridiculous.
It's very disappointing to see something that has so much potential and so much innovation and such a proud legacy be cheapened the way that it was. My biggest problem with Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom was that it tried to fit too many movies into one runtime. I understand a plot that's focused on getting Blue off the island before the volcano erupts. I understand a movie that's about, an evil dino smuggler. I don't understand a movie that has to do both.
And the clone,
which honestly, like, anybody that's listening should have seen Splice by now. That was a terrible movie, and I feel like that's where we're going.
God, well, first of all, I think the better movie would have just been, like, the volcano.
Yeah, we've got this great world. Like, let's stay there for a little bit.
Yeah, I don't want to go to the real world.
Yeah, we did that in Lost World, and it was cute, but we're done.
I love Chris Pratt. Like, I had a side boyfriend, it would be Chris Pratt, but it kind of, like, diminished. And I wonder if it's that kind of thing that we're talking about, where if you overdo it like The Rock is doing now, are we getting tired of Chris Pratt a little? Just, is he phoning it in, or was it just the material and he couldn't like resurrect it? Like he couldn't find anything. And bless Bryce Dallas Howard's heart, she was trying really hard too, and I couldn't take it seriously.
Yeah, to speak on the Pratt problem, I do feel that we have this expectation of Chris Pratt. If you go back to Andy Dwyer, and especially to Star-Lord, Chris Pratt is in the really fortunate position where he's been given an opportunity in a major Hollywood franchise to play himself. And Chris Pratt is very charming and very fun. We all love him. And unfortunately, as fun as that is in terms of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, when he starts to play a character that is not lovable Chris Pratt, it becomes a struggle. And I feel that that's the problem with his Owen character, is that Owen is just, gruff beefcake, beefcake action hero, and that's not what we want out of Chris Pratt. And so regardless of whether or not it's his performance or the material, it's just wooden, and I hate it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't hate his character. I think it just he doesn't decide what to do with it. Like, I think they haven't decided, do we want a little bit of Chris Pratt in the character, so they do jokes with him, and then he has to be the super serious person, and then like it's just not like, it's like, I don't know who Owen.
He's Pex. That's what he's Pex, and he talks to velociraptors.
And then also the Bryce Dallas Howard problem is, I mean, her character, not her. I love her. And I saw her in real life at Tribeca Film Festival, and she was so beautiful. So I love her.
Tune in for our Twitter feud with Bryce Dallas Howard.
No, I love you, Bryce. But I think that like her character in the first film didn't make sense, or was horrible too. Like she was just like CEO person. I could look past it. It's running in heels. It's fine. Whatever. She didn't. Well, no, it's not fine. But it didn't make sense. And then she was all into her nephews, and then I was just like, where are the nephews now? Why aren't they part of the dino saving thing? Like I hate when things don't continue. So they just threw in those kids in the first one just because they have to have the kids.
Yeah.
Which is stupid. Mm-hmm. And then like all of a sudden you forget about the kids and your sister, which you don't have to mention, but it just doesn't make any sense.
Like there's no continuity, like it just stops. Yeah, and now they've got this ward. What's going to happen with that? Stupid movie.
But going back to your Ant-Man and the Wasp, I did love that movie. I think it's one of my favorites of the summer. It's just so fun, and I love Evangeline Lilly. Like, she's the most badass.
Yeah, just really great overall ensemble work. Michelle Pfeiffer, her role in the film was quite small in the grand scheme of things, but just a really great performance. And these are characters that I, care about seeing what happens. I'm not going to name any names, but there definitely are some Marvel characters at this point that I'm really not too invested in outside of their overall role in the story. I care about these characters. I'm excited to go back and see what is happening specifically with them. Well, of course, Infinity War also came out this year, and that's the big culmination of everything that we've been building towards. really, really great start. Something that a lot of people have criticized is that it's only half a movie, which, yes, that's true. We're going to see the finish out in part 2. But really great performances all around. It was very satisfying to finally see everything come to a head. Josh Brolin is really killing it in the villain roles. I loved him as Cable in Deadpool 2, loved him as Thanos. He's been killing it as Thanos, and really looking forward to seeing where that goes.
Yeah, I almost forgot about Deadpool. That was probably one of my favorites as well. I love Deadpool 2. I was happy that it actually made a good sequel. Yeah, and it didn't, there was some stuff, obviously, it always gets a little diminished. I thought they did a really good job. I know they did the whole fridging thing of the love interest, but as long as they recover her in the third one, I'll forgive them. Just because Deadpool is such a cool character. So one of the ones I love that I saw recently was Mission Impossible Fallout, Tom Cruise. Some people may be put off by Tom Cruise for his real life shenanigans. As long as he didn't kill anybody, I'm okay. I'm all about sticking to the work unless it's something that's really bad. I don't know. It was just one of those movies that it felt back in the day movies, or when I was growing up, 90s movies, action movies. It knew what it was. It's a blockbuster, and it just does what it does best. And then, of course, Tom Cruise, knowing the backstory where he broke his ankle and then just seeing all these crazy stunts, I actually felt tense watching it, which is weird, which is kind of rare these days. You're like, oh, that was CGI, or that was just like whatever, so you don't really get invested as much. So I think that was one of my favorites that I loved. Some of the stunts were a little too crazy. There had to be CGI in there. But I think also the story, like, I love his love interest. I love the way they did that trio, that love triangle with the three, and how they tied up his wife, and how it makes sense. Obviously there's a lot going on in there, but then they found his equal in a very cool way. And then they still haven't even gotten together per se. So I loved how they did that. And I feel like more action movies should go that route instead of just throwing in a love interest like a James Bond is different, but throwing in a love interest just because they have to have something, and it makes it cheap. So I love that about Mission Impossible. And what did you think of that? Because I reviewed that one, so I don't know your thoughts.
I went to an early screening for that, which it's always really interesting to see the crowd that comes to those things. And again, I really feed off the energy of the people around me and just love people who love movies. Of course, it doesn't get more quintessential action than the Mission Impossible films. And of course, Tom Cruise being the huge star that he is. Mission Impossible, great first film. I, not being a huge action fan myself, I'll take it or leave it. It really just depends. I had been on kind of a slow, steady decline in terms of my feelings about the sequels, but I will say that Mission Impossible Fallout has probably been the best sequel to come out in a while, at least in my opinion. Really enjoyed that. Thought that I'm really big into like sets and locations. I definitely appreciate that, and I love films where we get to move around a lot and really play with environments, and I think that's something that Mission Impossible Fallout did really well.
What did you think about Henry Cavill's the mustache gate? Was it worth the Did you see Superman?
I begrudgingly have seen the Superman.
That was maybe one of my downfalls, is I love Henry Cavill back from his, the Two Doors days when he was with Jonathan Rhys-Meyers, which I watched all the Mission Impossible movies before watching this one, and Jonathan Rhys-Meyers was actually a good guy in like the second one or no, I think the fourth one, or I don't know. Don't quote me on that, which is weird to see. It was weird to see him, but just a shout out. But yeah, I can't get on the Henry Cavill acting train.
I'm not into it, and I hate to, kind of like how you don't like to bash a movie, I really don't like to bash a performer, because we're all just doing the best we can in this world, especially Henry Cavill, maybe. But I was just not, I don't know. The thing is, the worst thing that you can be in my book is forgettable and replaceable. And I just feel that way about Henry Cavill right now.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. And I think sometimes, I think it may be that he's struggling to do the English accent. American accent. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's just taking too much, because it doesn't sound natural most of the time. Like in the movies that I've seen him in, and Superman, it sounds really weird. So I don't know if he's just like, it's not going well. Or he thinks he needs to be this kind of, he's not fitting into like how what The Rock is, or he's not a Tom Cruise. So no spoilers, but he did this scene where he has to be like really evil and yell at someone, and then it just sounded so corny. And in Mission Impossible, there's like cheesy moments, but it wasn't cringeworthy moments. Yeah, when I heard that, I was like, ooh, like let's not do that again. Yeah, but let's hope he gets back on it. I always root for them because
we're rooting for you.
Yeah, yeah.
And your mustache.
I mean, I will say though, him and I wrote it in the review, the performer with him and Tom Cruise, that bathroom scene.
Fantastic action sequence.
Is one of my favorites so far, probably in the last 5 years, is one of the standout. And that's probably not even the best. I mean, it was one of the best in that movie, but there was still the motorcycle scene was awesome too. There was so many good ones that if another action movie that's come out in the last year has one of those, it would have been awesome. But this one had 5, so... Mm-hmm. Oh, it was just so good. I'm glad Tom Cruise is back to form too. I mean, even though some people don't like him, but I think he's one of our last movie stars remaining, back in the day.
True star.
Yeah.
Stars off.
Okay, so now that we've done a little bit of what we liked during summer, what do we have to look forward to? August is kind of it's a weird month because it's kind of going into the festival season as well as going into the Oscar nominated, start of the Oscar nominated movies that will come out a little bit later.
Right.
But August, you wrote about this. It's on shuffleline.net. What movies we should be watching besides The Meg? What are other ones that you're looking forward to?
I'm going to the advanced screening for BlacKkKlansman tomorrow. Really, really excited about that. I'm a huge history buff. Love Spike Lee. Really looking forward to that. I'm one of these people where I really like it whenever a movie gets political. I think one of the beautiful things about film as an art is that it can really reflect a time period. And we spoke on this with Deep Blue Sea. Things are a product of their time. When a movie is made, it speaks so much to that moment in history, regardless of the period that a film is set in. I feel like we need a movie like Black at this point. I think that it has an opportunity to really speak, and I want to be there for the conversation. So very excited about that. By the time you're listening to this, my review should be on shuffleonline.net.
Can you talk a little bit about what BlacKkKlansman is about, just so people who don't know about it?
Yeah, so the Super Spark Notes version is rookie cop, first black cop in his department, takes it upon himself to infiltrate the KKK. Does it over the phone, just in case you were wondering how that happens. It is based on a true story. He makes several phone calls to David Duke, who's the, is it the president of the KKK? What are they, the Grand Dragon?
I don't know. And then he's played by Topher Grace, right? Oh, that's going to be interesting.
I know, it's going to be really good. I'm excited. I'm really excited about this cast. Adam Driver plays his partner who goes in his stead anytime that this cop would have to meet with David Duke. So it's going to be kind of a exposing the KKK. It looks like it's very thoroughly glazed in humor, which I really appreciate. I think that the world can be so bleak, and there are a lot of bleak movies out there, so whenever you can take things kind of tongue-in-cheek, I think it makes it a little better. And kind of almost in a vein of Inglourious Basterds, that's sort of what I thought about whenever I first saw the trailers for BlacKkKlansman, is it's it's going to be kind of a little bit of a revenge fantasy, but maybe a bit more restrained. That was the impression that I got. So full disclosure about Christopher Robin, when I saw the first teaser trailer, I bawled and have continued to cry every time I've seen any promotional materials for the movie. I love Winnie the Pooh. I grew up on Winnie the Pooh. My partner and I have plans to see it. I take a pretty dim view of the Disney live-action films. I haven't really liked a lot of them, and I am so over remakes and reimaginings at this point. You have to be pretty special to catch my interest, and I was trepidatious, but bringing in Jim Cummings for that voice, and it looks so sweet and so soft, and I have cried.
Yeah, and I love Haley Atwell, so I'm glad she's getting a little praise, because she got with Agent Carter. Mm-hmm. I watched it after the fact. I don't know what I was doing during the time it was on, but I watched it and I was like, oh my gosh, she's so good. Why would you axe this? But whatever.
Yeah, she's a talent for sure. And unfortunately, just with the Marvel universe being as vast as it is, that's kind of the sad thing about something that gets so large, is you do have to lose pieces along the way because things can get too big, and that was an unfortunate loss, but it does open her up to do a lot more things, and I really want to see a lot more from her. My boyfriend has promised me a boozy milkshake that I'm inevitably going to sob into. I'm so excited.
Yeah, and then what other films? Let's see, there's The Spy Who Dumped Me. Probably won't watch that. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's good. I don't know. Comedy's hard for me just because I feel like, especially with Kate McKinnon and then it's Mila Kunis, I don't know why they're going for just silly humor. I mean, I guess that's a lot of people want to just see silly humor, which I might just be a weird person. But I want to see some smart comedies. Like, I don't know why they don't play to their strengths. Or
for me, I'll go see anything, and I'll especially go see anything within the scope of this job. But I really need to be grabbed, and kind of my sixth sense when it comes to movies, if I enjoy a trailer, then I'm at least going to get something out of the movie, and it's very easy to grab me, so trailers do not have to try too hard. But if I feel nothing, then I'm not gonna bother with it. Going to the movies is expensive. Movie passes going down. We're going to have to start paying for movies. Yeah,
well, at least now the good thing about the movie pass thing is that theaters have upped their game because they had to. So now they got suckered into doing subscription-based movies. So I think the end user, us, is going to benefit from that. Let's see, another one, Crazy Rich Asians. I'm really excited for.
That is going to be like an Instagram feed put to film, and I'm super here for it. Have you read the book?
I have not, no.
I actually somehow managed to miss Crazy Rich Asians, itself. I came in to, was it China Rich Girlfriend, Crazy Rich Wedding? There were several that came after, and I read them completely out of order. And I haven't read Crazy Rich Asians. It's sitting on my bookshelf. I have intended to read it for a year now.
Well, at least you bought it and supported.
Supporting authors.
Yeah, that one looks fun. I love the fact that they're giving a voice to the diversity. I hope it does well.
Oh, I think that it's very well set up. The books were incredibly popular, and they've got a really fantastic cast. A lot of favorite faces from previous films for sure. And just a great date movie, and that's something that I kind of miss. I'm not a huge rom-com person. I'm a little bit of a purist when it comes to that. But having a fun date movie, that's something that doesn't come along very often, and Crazy Rich Asians has set itself up quite well. I'm trying to get my partner to go. We have a lot of people to thank that have been a huge help to us in getting this project off the ground. Thank you, Permanent Record Studios, for the beautiful space and the beautiful mics and the beautiful help to make us all sound so beautiful in beautiful Austin, Texas. Thank you, Fonz PR, for having us out to your events. We love working with you. Thank you, Jay, of So Many Shows. Thank you, Mike, of Pop Culture Review. Thank you, So I'm Watching the Show. Y'all are fantastic partners and fantastic entertainers. And, of course, you can catch us in all the things that us and the other staff writers at Shuffle are doing on shuffleonline.net. Thanks again, Shufflers. We're going to shuffle on, and if you want to shuffle along with us, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Shuffle the Pod. Shuffle out.